What is up, everybody? Welcome into this Wednesday episode of Flippin Bats. Always a guest episode, and today we got a great one. Steven Kwan, outfielder for the Cleveland Guardians, who hit .298 in his rookie year, had an awesome rookie campaign. The Guardians get to the playoffs as the youngest team in Major League Baseball and have a good run in the playoffs as well. Obviously, we're going to talk all about that. His college career, he won a College World Series with Oregon State. He was teammates with Adley Rutschman. His mental approach at the plate and to the game of baseball is also one for me that's really, really fascinating. We're going to dive into everything with him. I am pumped for you all to hear this conversation. So without further ado, let's welcome him in now.
Fly ball onto the track, at the wall, it's gone! Home run!
Turns on a ball, deep right field, and gone!
What a game, what a moment. All right, and I am pumped to welcome in now outfielder for the Cleveland Guardians, Steven Kwan. Steven, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate you.
Of course. Hey, I got to start because every time I have somebody on, I know you didn't play there for a while, but somebody that played in the New York Penn League, I always have to ask a question because I played there for a full season and I walked away with a million stories. A guy coming out of college that experienced college baseball and then go to what was professional baseball, but expecting a little more glamorous when I got to the New York Penn League. I ended up with some stories of, I don't know if you got to play in Vermont against the Lake Monsters, but I was showering on like dirt floors. My bus ride to Mahoning Valley was 10 hours, 11 hours long, and the bus broke down. Do you have any crazy New York Penn League stories?
No, nothing too crazy. The long bus rides definitely got me. We made it to the playoffs when I got there, and we were, I think, driving to Albany. And along the ride, I actually turned 21 there, but since none of the guys knew me over there, I just had a silent 21st birthday. So I got a couple texts and everything, but I just remember thinking like, damn, this is professional baseball. Just happy birthday to me on the road, and got a game in a couple hours. So that was definitely a little interesting.
That bus ride had to be like 10 hours. What is that? The Tri-City, the Valley Cats or whatever.
Yeah. No, it was definitely deep. That was the longest bus ride I've had in baseball so far.
So, Steven, last year, your rookie year in the big leagues, you hit .298 in your rookie season. You win a Gold Glove award. You make the playoffs with the youngest team in Major League Baseball. You beat the Rays. You take the Yankees to 5 games. It was such a cool year to watch. But for you personally, when I ask about 2022, like, what are your thoughts that come to mind?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a whirlwind. I think that's the best way to say it. I was just trying to keep up with all the different things going on. I was just happy to be there, super wide-eyed. It kind of took me, I would say, like 2 months in the off season to really like say I was able to decompress, process everything, and be able to look back. But like, I feel like when you're in that kind of moment, you're just trying to look at the next day and the next day, and body was kind of banged up, just different things going on. But looking back, it was a crazy, crazy journey.
How much fun was it for you guys? Because I know you didn't have this mentality, but from the outside, it was like you guys are almost playing with house money. You're going up against the Rays and then the New York Yankees and nobody giving you much of a chance in the playoffs. But you got there with the youngest team in baseball. You beat the Rays, walk-off homers, walk-off wins. You hit over 400 in the ALDS against the Yankees. Like, how much fun was that playoff run for you guys last year?
Yeah, it was really cool. We had a couple of veterans, obviously, on the team kind of telling us, like, how things go, what we should be expecting. But it was really cool that we were able to just kind of, look to the left and right and just be like, a lot of us haven't been here before. Let's just go out and play as hard as we can. Lean on each other. Obviously, the fans in New York were chirping at us, and it was funny just kind of looking at each other and being like, this is playoff baseball. This is what it's all about. It was definitely a lot of fun to just be able to hunker down in the bunker with your guys and then get the job done.
Speaking of Yankee Stadium and those fans, I love Miles Straw, who's center fielder, and you guys played left and center field last year. And in Yankee Stadium, there was that play. It ended up going viral for so many different reasons, but you crash into the wall in left field. And I want to ask from your perspective, because you crash into the wall, you're probably not there immediately. And by the time you come to, you probably turn around and Miles Straw has climbed up into the stands yelling at people behind you. What was going through your head during all that?
Yeah, no, you definitely got it right. I was just trying to stay to, and I was definitely seeing stars when that all was going on. I actually missed the actual climbing of the thing, but then I kind of saw people, yelling at him and kind of the aftermath of that, and people trying to, get him away from that. Um, it's funny to say, but in the moment, although my body was hurting, it felt good that, like someone on this team actually wants to
Yeah.
stick up for you and really likes you. That was like my first month still in the big leagues. I was still I didn't think I was going to make the team, so I didn't really make a ton of friends on the big league team. Just kind of looking around, not trying to make too much of waves, but seeing Miles, put himself out there and defend me. I mean, that made me feel really good and made me feel like I was part of this team.
I mean, all you did there was go hard after a ball, crash into the wall. And then now, probably for the rest of your career, you're never going to hear the end of it from Yankees fans for just going hard after a ball because of everything that played out. And the rest of that game, I'm sure they were coming at you, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a close game too. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just good baseball. I mean, back and forth. Yeah, I know it was kind of treacherous scenery. It was like a day game. I know everybody's having their midday beers and everything. So the arena was definitely a little hostile, but it's definitely that was a really cool experience to look back on.
I want to get into the weeds a little bit in hitting because I love talking hitting, and I recently had Luis Ariz on, who's hitting 400 this year. It's insane. So to talk to him about hitting was really cool. And you're a little different because you have a big leg kick, but it's not like your traditional leg kick where you lift and then like drive forward with it. It's just kind of I want to talk to you about it. How did the leg kick come to be, and what is your thought process when you're doing it?
Yeah, so kind of coming up through college and all those kind of things, I actually had like a new swing and like a new load every year. Was just trying to see what worked. And
Yeah.
I remember in 2021, I did like a little swing camp, and they basically kind of told me they're like, hey, like kind of just forget kind of what you've learned before, like just do what's natural. Like when something's coming up, like if you're trying to time a pitch up, like how would you do it? If you're playing, with ball in the backyard, like how would you do it? Um, and I remember they kind of hooked me up to a little machine, and I'll spare the details of like what it was all doing, but it was pulling me forward. And I remember I had to keep my leg, or I had to have the leg lift to kind of keep me balanced
Yeah.
during that. And yeah, it's completely a timing mechanism. It's definitely not for like the big leg lift and huge swing after. I feel like I'm able to kind of, I guess, not a great word is hover, but like hover while I'm waiting for the pitch and then be able
Yeah.
to strike it.
So you're
I
not
don't
like
want it to be
leaning forward through your weight's not taking you forward when you lift. It's literally just a timing mechanism for you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's the thought process behind it.
If you were to get some weight going forward, what kind of pop you got? I know you don't have too many big league bombs, but I mean, is it in there?
I appreciate you kind of lead me into that, but I don't know if it's a ton. I usually try to do like a homer round in BP, like 8 swings inside, just try to yank it, and I'll usually get like one or two out. So I got to be pretty honest with my pop, but it's deep in there. I'd like to think it's deep in there.
I just told you I had a rise on a couple weeks ago, and I asked him this question. He's like, "Oh yeah, I got a lot of pop," and I was, we laughed about it. And then he hit a homer the other day, like his third of the year. So I guess there was some truth to it. I want to go back to your college days for you. You play at Oregon State. The College World Series just wrapped up. We saw LSU win it. You got to experience that yourself in 2018. You were there. You win it in 2018 with your team. What's LSU and their players experiencing right now? Like how awesome was that experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, they have to be just pure euphoria right now, especially with that LSU fan base. Like they treat them like gods over there. They treat them really well. I mean, they're probably, I guess was it yesterday they had the game? I'm sure they're going through the parade right now. They're probably all hanging out after the parade and just kind of telling war stories, doing their thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that time is really special to me. It was just time with all the boys. There's obviously no like financial rewards for winning it. It's really just like for the love of baseball and being able to again like hunker down in the bunker with your guys. You look to the left and right, those guys that you had 6 a.m. waits with. To be able to win it and show that all that hard work really paid off is extremely fulfilling.
So they do a parade even for I didn't know, I went to Old Dominion. We didn't make it. There is a parade in Omaha after the College World Series ends.
Well, I don't not in Omaha. I'm assuming they
Go back to LSU. Got it.
yeah, back to LSU, and they'll have a little thing. I remember we had we flew into Portland. It's like an hour 15 drive down, and right when we got into Corvallis, we had a little parade going on, which was really cool.
I was reading up about you in college and your swing and kind of saw how you were going through different swings. And at one point you were toe tapping. But one thing I saw that was interesting is basically the first time you really cracked the lineup and became a starter on that team, I read was because you mastered bunting and like finally got that down. Is that serious? You finally cracked the lineup for good because you mastered your bunting?
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess it wasn't because I got the bunting, but the bunting was the vessel to get me in. Like, West Coast baseball always try to get bunts down. It'd be
Yeah.
like the seventh inning. I would be the guy that they call off the bench to get a bunt down. I'd get it down, and more often than not, they would take me out and get somebody else out there. But, if we got the lead after that, they would keep me in. I would get at bat in the ninth inning and here or there get a hit. And then that would kind of prove that I could stay in the lineup. But bunting was basically the way I got in. Our head coach Pat Casey told me there's always one guy that makes every team because he can bunt, and I had a brutal fall, so
Yeah.
I took that to heart and really locked in with one of our coaches and bunted every single day. And Oregon State's field is a little leaning where the line is higher than the field, so foul or balls that are going to go foul will usually tip back.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a little bit of a bias there on that, but the bunting definitely got me to who I am. I owe a lot to the bunting.
So that year end up changing things and your swing ends up improving throughout your college career. But you just hearing you say like it was changing every year. It's something for me, once that starts happening, it's just such a mental, like a mind game, and it can be very difficult. Professionally, I came into pro ball with like a little bit of a hitch in my swing and they let me do it and then end up taking it out. And next thing you know, you're just constantly searching for your swing. At some point in college, you found it and you stopped, you were doing all these different things. Do you remember that point in which your swing clicked and you didn't just become a bunter anymore? You became a guy that was going to hit well over 300.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that first year, like I said, the swing really wasn't that great. And I had another coach who kind of sat me down. He's like, hey, like season's about to start, so we can't really break down your swing. Like if you're willing to commit to it, like we'll work on a complete overhaul. Like it might take a year, it might take 2 years, but we're just going to work on one little thing every day and just keep working on it. So that first year, it was very okay. And then kind of through the sophomore year, things started clicking a little bit. And I was like, okay, like this feels really good. I can see where the results are coming from. Took that into summer ball from sophomore to junior year. And then that junior fall, I remember he was saying, he's like, hey, like, we worked through all the stuff. You look really good. Things look really comfortable. Like, I like where you're at. Like, let's just work on maintaining the swing now. So it was definitely a long journey, and maybe it was ignorance to just believe that I could do that. But I guess it was a blessing that my swing was so bad from the beginning. It was either completely overhaul or don't play baseball anymore. So faced with those two, definitely going to start grinding.
You were teammates in college for a few years with Adley Rutschman. And I guess first, safe to say Adley didn't crack the lineup because he mastered his bunting.
No, that guy is just a different beast altogether.
That guy is an absolute freak. And even now in the big leagues, what both of you are doing, but seeing him and the turnaround he's been able to be a part of for the Orioles, but what he did in college, everybody was involved in him and his career and your team because of, he hit well over 400 a couple times. Being up close and personal, watching Adley Rutschman in college, like how cool was that for you?
Yeah, it was really cool. I don't know if a lot of people know, but his freshman year, he basically was in the starting lineup only because he could catch. And that's not obviously his fault. He had to split time between football and baseball. So I mean, I don't even know how he managed to do that. But he was a defense first catcher playing the freshman year, and he led our pitching staff. I want to say like an under 2 team ERA, like which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guy just grinds. He understands what he needs to do. You tell him something, he's super coachable. Great team leader, obviously. And then once that swing kind of came together over that summer, I mean, it was over. He did obviously what everybody sees he does now, but along with him being just like an awesome person and just like a great teammate, like he obviously has done everything that is expected of him and more. Awesome guy.
You mentioned him playing football that first year. He was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and it got brought up, him tackling Christian McCaffrey. How often did he bring that up once he finally did it, or not at all?
No. We had older guys who would bring it up. He's one of those guys that just would never talk about something like that because he's like, yeah, that's just something that happened. But I mean, we had guys who were obviously big into football and like knew what McCaffrey was going to be, and then like every day would be the joke. He's like, Rutch, you tackled Christian McCaffrey. Like, you ever think about that? And he was like, yeah, I guess. Like, it's whatever. But I mean, he's never one to talk about his own achievements. It was always older guys that loved hyping him up.
I often talk about, because I think my perspective when talking baseball is a little interesting, where I played minor league baseball, never got to the major leagues, but I experienced the grind of the minors, the mental side of things. So I often talk to guys about the mental side of baseball, because I truly believe it's the most mentally grueling sport there is. And if you fail 70% of the time as an offensive guy, you're a Hall of Famer. I mean, that's just the game. So failure is something you really have to deal with, which I wasn't great at it. I would let an 0 for 4 turn into an 0 for 12 quickly because I would get into my head. You in college, I saw you started visiting a sports psychologist, and that was more because you didn't feel almost like you belonged at the beginning. How did that help you, and how did you get to a point mentally, other than just like starting to have success? How did you get to a place mentally where you did feel okay and like you belonged on the field?
Yeah, there were multiple things, but I think one of the biggest ones was just kind of getting introduced to meditating and just being kind of aware of all of these thoughts that are swirling in our heads. I used to think that I was the only one that like had all these anxieties of like thinking about what the pitcher's going to throw, thinking about where my hands are, thinking about this, like where we are in the game, thinking about if I swing at this first pitch, thinking if I should swing at the second pitch. Like all of these things are going on, a million miles an hour. And just first of all, hearing from the sports psychologist saying like, hey, like that's completely normal. Like there's not a person in this game that doesn't feel those kind of things. It's just how the relationship with those feelings are. I remember that being kind of like a really eye-opening, advice. Going through that and just being aware of the thoughts that we have and understanding that, like you said, the game is more mental. Once I devoted as much time as I did with baseball to the mental, I think things started coming together.
Yeah, that's honestly what you have to do is devote as much time to the mental side of the game, because as I wish I could go back, because as I mentioned to you, I would seriously go 0 for 4, and then you take that home with you, and then next thing you know, that's an 0 for 8, and then you keep taking, and it just piles on top of each other. So being able to have like a mechanism like yourself and meditating to bring you back to a little bit, I'm sure helps a lot. Did you have that feeling at all when you got to the big leagues? Like, did it kind of reset and you have to start all over again of, do I belong here? Or did everything you had learned along the way help you once you got there and you didn't feel that anymore?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It came back in 20 times harsher.
Yeah.
Obviously, this last year I had a really good first month, and then the May after that, things started kind of falling off a cliff. And just the self-talk that I would have to myself was just very toxic, very negative. Like basically going through that whole cycle of like, okay, like hopefully they don't send me down. It's okay. They're gonna send me down for this game, and like looking around my shoulder for the coaches.
Oh, yeah.
Like bargaining and being like, okay, like once I go in AAA, I'll spend this much time, and then I'll ball out and make it by June, whatever. And like I went through the whole cycle of it. And I mean, it's crazy because obviously the mental game was very important to me, and I needed that to get there. And then once I got to the big leagues, I started kind of abandoning it, and obviously the mind starts wandering. So it was definitely hard to kind of stay on the routines, but seeing just right in front of me like how toxic and how negative the inner voices that sometimes you don't even realize you're thinking, seeing those just right in front of you, it was vital that I got back on those routines.
Yeah, and it also, the start you got off to was remarkable. You reached base 18 times in your first 5 games, which is a record since 1901. While you're in the middle of that 5-game stretch, do you even realize that it's a historic run, or were you just so caught up in being a big leaguer and trying to have success and prove your worth at that level that you didn't even realize it?
Yeah, no, I definitely didn't even realize. Like my heart was still beating out of my chest every time I get to the plate and see Salvi Perez at home plate saying what's up to me. Like I even thought that was one of the coolest things ever. I remember Whit Merrifield's talking to me at second base. Licky Lopez is cracking jokes with me. Like it was unbelievable, all the things that were going on. The records weren't even a thought at that point. But yeah, it was a whirlwind for sure.
Speaking of catchers talking to you when you walk up to the plate, you guys recently played the Orioles, Adley behind the plate. What was the conversation? Was there any trash talk, or was it all just like, dude, you're the best, good to see you?
Yeah, it was all love. At the end of the series though, things were getting a little, I'm not gonna say dicey, but I was getting a little butthurt. There were 2 strikeouts that got called on me that were balls, but they rung me up on, and I look back and Adley sticks it unbelievable. So I'm like, come on, man. Like, you guys are already winning. Like, you ain't got to stick it on me. Like, just give me a chance. And he's just laughing, obviously, because the umpire's right there. He doesn't want to say anything to jeopardize that. But we were cracking jokes at the end, which was a lot of fun.
You just got to pull out the move. It hasn't happened it was a long time ago, but there was some batter that just turns, drop kicks the catcher, and then just starts going off. That's what you should have done with Adley in that moment.
I mean, he might have caught my foot and broke my whole leg. So I know better than when to pick some fights.
How cool was it? I know neither of you ended up finishing first because of Julio, but in both of your rookie years, to finish in the top 3, 2 and 3 in the AL Rookie of the Year conversation, like, how special was that for you two?
Yeah, it was really cool. I think it speaks more than anything about Oregon State and kind of the culture that we grew up with. I mean, those guys are my brothers forever, and just to put Oregon State on the map in that kind of aspect, I think was really cool, and kind of give some love to Pat Casey, our head coach. It obviously took a whole village to get me and Adley to where we were. So I hope everybody over at Oregon State feels that same pride that we felt about that.
This year with the Guardians, your second full season in the big leagues, not off to the best start, but you look up at the standings and you're right there flirting with first place in the division. So you got to believe as a team you're in a perfectly acceptable and a fine place. But what do you think the start to the season for you guys? What do you think the big difference between the way you all finished 2022 and the start to 2023? What has been the difference for you as a team?
Yeah, I think there's different dynamics for sure. I mean, the beginning of last year, we started off really slow, and that could be a multitude of things. Just kind of getting accustomed to the year, cold in Cleveland, cold in everywhere we go. I just put up usually just small sample size. Yeah. I know the dynamic this year is a little different because we're not surprising anybody. We obviously did what we did last year, and people understand what our kind of game is. So maybe we're getting a lot of people's best bullets or better bullets than we were before, but. I mean, things are definitely chugging along. It's good to have meaningful baseball be played every day. It keeps everybody engaged, locked in, and loose at the same time. So, yeah, I feel like we're in a really good spot right now.
All right, I got a couple fun questions for you before we finish up. The first of which being, aside from your home stadium, what is your favorite stadium stadium or city that you travel to on the road?
I mean, that's a pretty lazy one, but I really liked Fenway. Fenway is it's so historic. It's just so quaint, and it's so cool, especially getting to play left field in front of the monster. Like, that's obviously a really cool experience to be able to kind of understand the intricacies. I didn't know that there's a freaking ladder just in the middle of it. Like in BP, a ball like ricocheted off of the ladder and went all the way to the line. Like, that put the fear of God in me. But just understanding those little nuances, I think, was really cool. So I would say Fenway.
I think in the history of this show and all the players that have come on, you might be the first to use the word quaint to describe a stadium, and I like that. That's good. Have you grew up in the Bay Area? Were you a Giants fan?
Yeah, I was a Giants fan. My dad grew up in San Francisco, so we'd always go to the Giants games.
Have you gotten to play there yet?
No, we play there in September. So
you do? That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that.
I mean, I'm assuming a bunch of family and friends. You're probably going to have one thing people don't realize, which is never has sat well with me. If you're a major leaguer and you have a bunch of people coming, you can get tickets, but you have to pay the taxes on all those tickets. So if you go home and get 30 tickets, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And it's a whole dicey situation, because then you bring that up, and then that people are thinking like, okay, well, is he mentioning that because he can't afford it? Like, he can't afford it. And it's like, I just want to dodge that whole situation. And just try to avoid that. So I actually live closer to Oakland, so we've obviously played the A's a couple of times. So that's usually when the tickets come up more, but they're cheaper than the Giants tickets. So try to get my buddies out there to see some games.
So I got to ask you, we don't need to dive too much into the politics behind the move and everything, but living closer to that area, what are Oakland A's fans feeling right now? I mean, it's such a shitty situation for them, and I feel awful for the fans. So people that live out there and they hear about this move to Vegas, I mean, what are A's fans going through right now?
Yeah, definitely betrayed. I mean, I think people were thinking that this would be the one professional team to stay in the Bay, but unfortunately they're not blindsided by it. Like, obviously the Warriors left first, then the Raiders. I think there's another professional team that left before that I'm not sure about, but it's definitely sad. I mean, you watch those videos of kind of when the Coliseum was popping, playoff baseball. I mean, that was unlike any other. And even though they don't have as many fans as they did before. Like the Oakland fans there make sure they're heard. So definitely probably a little betrayed, dejected, I'm sure. But I mean, it's sad to say that everybody saw it coming.
Yeah, they were great fans. I've experienced playoff baseball in that stadium, and it is. I've said this. It is the loudest playoff atmosphere I have ever experienced. It is unbelievable. I know you were a Giants fan, but did you ever get to go to a playoff game when they were really good there for that stretch of time? Did you go to the Coliseum for a playoff game?
No, I was never able to go to any of those games.
My brothers told me this story before, but I think it was in '06. They were playing there. He said he was sitting next to somebody in the dugout, and they were screaming at each other from like face to face, and they could not hear what each other were saying. And they still, both to this day, remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, it was insanely loud.
Yeah, I mean they're right on top of you. They'll make sure they're heard.
Who did you, as a Giants fan, who did you grow up like? Who were your favorite players?
Yeah, so I used to be a first baseman. I'm sure that's hard to believe, but lefty over at first base. Used to have some pop, but I really liked watching Brandon Belt, JT Snow. Like watching Travis Ishikawa. That was a really cool one because that was another Japanese American guy who was playing baseball, which I hadn't seen a lot of during then. And then obviously that whole like 2010, 12, 14 team. I think that was really the time where I really fell in love with baseball.
Oh no. Were you at the game where Pablo Sandoval took my brother deep 3 times?
I was not. Those were way too expensive, but you best believe I was watching it on TV.
Oh, what a series that was. So, I mean, just for you growing up a fan and to experience that every other year, every even year, just your team winning a championship. I mean, that's one of the most spoiled a fan base could possibly be like in the history of sports. You got that with the Giants, you had the run the Patriots go on, but you got to experience like one of the coolest times of all time to be a baseball fan.
100%. And this is probably going to make people groan, but I'm also a Warriors fan. So having that kind of dynasty as well. I've been a huge spoiled Bay Area fan my whole life. So yeah, it definitely cemented my love for baseball. And I look at those times very fondly.
All right. What is your least favorite stadium to play in or visit?
Least favorite? Oh, that's a tough one. Well, I guess Oakland would probably be the safe answer since it won't be around very long. But I have a soft spot for Oakland. I guess I don't know. That's a tough one. I also don't want to put anybody on blast, but
well, if it helps you answer the question, everyone's answer is either Oakland or somewhere that they're like 1 for 30 lifetime at. I hate that place. It could be like a beautiful stadium, and they're like, I hate it. I hate playing there.
Actually, I'm not a huge fan of Detroit now that we're fully uncovering everything. Detroit's a tough one. I don't think I hit too great over there, and a lot of times it's freezing over there. So yeah, I'd say a close second is Detroit.
You get in the organization and pretty much immediately go through just an organizational name change, which is wild to think about. Ends up being the Guardians, from the Indians to the Guardians. When that whole process was happening, like, what were you hoping would be the team name? Are you fine with Guardians? Do you like Guardians now that it's all settled?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I don't think they marketed the reason why they called it the Guardians. I don't think a lot of people know, but like we have a bridge right outside the stadium that has these 2 guardians on it that kind of, guard the city, guard the stadium. Like it's a pretty cool kind of whole wraparound thing. But whenever I talk to people, they're like, "Oh yeah, I had no idea. Like I thought they just chose that." And like they chose Guardians because they keep the IANS to save some money. So it's just those little things where I don't think they marketed it very well, but I like it. I think Spiders would have been really cool, but
Spiders was the one. Spiders would have been kind of sick.
Yeah, but I don't think they want to take away from the previous Spiders team. Yeah. So I get where they're coming from.
All right, who's faster, you or Miles Straw?
Miles.
Okay.
Confidently Miles.
Okay, I can give you another confident one though. Who's the best chess player on the team?
Right now it's me. Yeah, I would definitely say it's me. When Will Benson was still with us, he was the person that would give me a run for my money. But since he got traded away this year, it would be me.
How'd you get into chess? But have you seen the Queen's Gambit?
Absolutely.
Could you beat her?
No. Also, probably shouldn't publicly say good on the drug addiction, but no, she's way too good.
How'd you get into it then?
So yeah, me and Will Benson, we just I remember it was the beginning of spring training. I want to say it was It's 2020. It's 2020.
Yeah.
2020. And we were there for depth camp just kind of early. And I think we were just both kind of like, hey, like there's a chessboard. You want to play? And we didn't really want to play video games. We didn't want to play cards. So we just sat down, played. And then eventually the juices just started flowing. Like I beat him a couple times and he beat me a couple times and he kept using the same way to beat me. So I'm on YouTube watching videos on how to beat this certain opening. I beat him and he goes on the same thing, goes on YouTube and looks it up. And next thing you know, we're grinding in the clubhouse. People are watching. It just became a whole thing, which is really cool.
That's great. Last one for you. In your career so far, who's the toughest pitcher that you've had to face?
I usually say Carlos Rodon when we played the Giants.
Yeah.
They came to our place, but I mean 99 at the eyes with Elite Ride is obviously no fun. But the one that got me was he struck me out my first at bat, and then my second at bat, I remember telling myself, "All right, be ready for the first pitch fastball. We're not going to get to 2 strikes. Forget all that." First pitch is right at my head, so I hit the deck, and I'm trying to get out of the way, and then halfway to the plate, it starts breaking right towards me, so plunks me in the head. I'm running down to first. Thankfully, I'm okay. But I look back on the iPad, and the pitch only ended up like a ball inside. But I was so convinced that he threw a first pitch fastball that I hit the deck, and I've never been so fooled by a pitch like that in my life. So when he had that and 99 in the back pocket, I just remember thinking, I don't want any part of this.
As a guy that it's part of your approach at the plate. You swing at less first pitches than anybody in the game of baseball, but hearing you say, like, against Rodon, I don't want to get to 2 strikes. How do you does that change your first pitch approach, or is it just a whole at bat approach? Is that a guy that we don't need to give away your secrets in the box here, but is that a type of pitcher that you might decide to swing earlier in a count or no?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
But that was also kind of my mindset because I think that was like the second week of the season. So I really didn't know how my plan was going to change from the minors to the majors. Yeah. People always talk about the same game, and I think it is the same game, but I just wasn't sure how I was feeling with those kind of things. Especially, I think it was a little bit of pride too, because that was our opening week, and I had struck out my first at bat in front of the whole Cleveland crowd. So I just remember telling myself, like, that was kind of embarrassing. I want to make sure I don't want to strike out in front of them. I want to look good in front of them. So, yeah. But yeah, depending on the pitcher, it definitely changes the strategy.
Steven, this was a blast, man. Thank you so much for joining me, and good luck this entire season. You're forever a friend of the pod, so come back on whenever. But thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. This was a ton of fun.
Of course, man. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, see ya. All right, just wanted to thank Steven Kwan again for joining me. What a blast of a conversation. And I know I end up asking a lot of guys about their mental approach at the plate or to the game of baseball, because it really is something that separates the best and makes them major leaguers. Honestly, from being a professional baseball player, it's equally about figuring out your swing as it is figuring out the mental game of baseball, because no matter how much success you've had in your career, everybody is going to struggle at some point in professional baseball, and it becomes about how you deal with that. And hearing him talking about dealing with that in college and then dealing with it 20 times over at the major league level was really interesting for me. I'm a big fan of his, and I hope everybody is. What a great conversation. What a great rookie year he had. And the Guardians are right there. When you look up, they haven't had the best year this year, but you look up in the AL Central and the Guardians are right there. So wishing him good luck the rest of the way. That was a lot of fun. And hearing him talk about the Giants and the Oakland situation and everything growing up and heading back home this year, I'm looking forward to watching him the rest of the way. So thank you all for listening. Make sure you're subscribed anywhere you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. We're also on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and you can watch everything on YouTube at Flippin Bats Pod for all of them. Thank you all for listening. Until tomorrow, my friends, peace.